Gladiator Metals holds the Whitehorse Copper Project in the Yukon, right outside of Whitehorse. This was a past-producing belt, Hud Bay Anglo JV in the 60s to the early 80s, shut down during the oil crisis, and the land sat dormant in private hands for 40 years. We acquired it 3 years ago, and we've been actively drilling to delineate some new resources on the land package. So the simple story for Gladiator Metals is we have the 35-kilometer belt. In the south, Cowley Park is our flagship asset. That's where we're trying to drill off a 40 to 50 million ton resource. There were 400 historic holes. We had to basically re-drill the whole deposit, but we found some very significant high-grade limbs that promise to really increase the grade. We have a secondary project in the Chief's Trend, that's in the vicinity of the Little Chief, Middle Chief mines. We just drilled the first set of holes through that to understand what's going on there. And then our third project is the Arctic Chief Best Chance Grafter deposit. We have additional ground in the north called the Hat Creek, the Hat Trend, which is early stage. We don't really do very much work on that. So our objective here in this 35-kilometer belt was to get somewhere between 100 and 150 million tons in probably 2 or 3 clusters. And I think we're well on our way given that our Cowley Park project is looking to be 40 to 50 million tons already. Our proximity to Whitehorse is a huge advantage. We drill for 250 Canadian dollars a meter, all in. We don't have camps. Everybody goes home at night. And as I tell people, if you want to order a pizza from the drill rig, you can probably get it delivered. So just close enough to Whitehorse where it's beneficial and not far enough away to require camps and a lot of extra infrastructure. Our management team, we're run by Jason Bontempo. He's an accountant who has some success advancing, developing projects, selling companies. Marcus Harden's our president. He does most of our exploration work with Cal. Myself, Olav Langelaar, I worked with the majors, mostly in operations for about the first 10 years of my career. I did some corporate work with Placer Dome, and I've spent 25 years in investment banking before I moved into this asset. Matt Roma is our CFO, Darren Devine, the chairman, and Sean Kuhn, both from Dolly Varden. So Gladiator has the benefit of, we have a very strong institutional following, about 33%, 10 big institutions. We just completed a financing in September for $22.5 million. So we have $30 million, which will fund us basically through all of next year. So as of today, all the news flow is covered, all the costs are covered. Management, high net worth individuals. There's a number of high net worth shareholders here in Vancouver who hold almost 20% of the company. So our market cap today is around $100 million. We have 97 million shares outstanding. We have an additional 11 million shares owned to the property vendors. And that's the Coyne family, who are the 7% shareholder. They're the owners of Kluwani Drilling. They do most of the drilling. It's a multinational diamond drilling firm. They're also a key part of our business strategy in terms of they're members of the Kwanlin Dun First Nation group who we partner with on this project. So I'll quickly talk about our Cowley Park prospect. This is our flagship asset. These are sort of preliminary grade shells. We're still open. So we have 40 to 50 million tons right now. We're pushing to get to a 1% copper grade overall. We've also got we've got molybdenum, silver, and gold credits. The moly is quite strong. Gold is very weak, but we were hoping to get sort of a 6-7 gram per ton silver credit. The deposit is still open at depth and at all, particularly here to the east, which is the Legier. We're sort of somewhat bound on this side here by some topography, which is like a 30, 40 foot high bluff, but we've got a swamp to get through, so we have to wait till the winter before we can drill on the other side. We've also just recently discovered that this intrusive in the middle here is mineralized at depth. So we had never drilled below 150 meters of vertical, and we've just recently drilled another, I think 50 meters of 0.7% copper in what we thought historically was a barren intrusive. So that's a very compelling, open at depth component to the story. This is a super busy slide, but really the only thing to take away from this slide was that this was a historically drilled off by Hudbay in the 70s and the 80s. And what we've discovered was that Hudbay only looked for basically 1% or better copper on visuals. And what we found was that there were these fairly large intervals, but they were surrounded by very broad intervals of lower grade. And when I say lower grade, 0.5, 0.7, 0.8% copper. And just to give people some context of this, you know, your typical BC copper porphyry is a 0.18, a 0.28 copper, and we're aiming for 1%. We have intervals here that are between 7 and 14% copper. So our grade is pretty spectacular, particularly given our proximity to the surface. So we're looking at an open pittable deposit. Here, Cowley Park, again, a little bit, this highlights a release we had out just a few weeks ago, where traditionally we thought this component was barren, and we ended up drilling 55 meters at 0.7. You can see 154 ppm moly. So that's a potential, I don't want to say game changer, but this really enhances our belief that we're onto something big with a big system here. Additionally, we've been running geophysics over the whole property. This is ongoing. You can see here that Cowley Park shows up very well. We have the additional trend here to the south. There's additional ground to the south we're working on. More importantly, we have this feature here, and then we have additional, which doesn't really show on this graphic, but there's additional mag signatures here and up here, which gives us a great deal of confidence that this is going to extend to the east significantly. Why is the 1% copper so important? I did a screen, and I found, I said, who has a 1% headline grade copper project in the world? And I only found 158. I get rid of the rats and mice. So if it was under 5 million tons, I discarded it. I put it down to 75. When I then cut it off at 40 million tons, there were only 22 projects, of which 4 are open pittable. So to give you a sense of the scarcity of this, four projects with 1% copper headline grade, 40 million tons open pit. And as you can see from here, the first 2 are conflict assets. One of them is actually metals mining China and the Taliban in Afghanistan, which I'm sure isn't going to see the light of day, and let alone we're kind of questioning the size of it. So really only have two assets that are of any great desire, which would be Trilogy's Arctic, and then San Nicolas in Mexico, which is also having some permitting issues in terms of the type of deposit. So further up the trend, we did a bunch of geophysics, and we've found new deposits or new prospective areas. This Valerie trend was new, previously unknown. We drilled 8 holes across it. The first 5 assays we did all came back with mineralization. And this is adjacent to the old historic Little Chief mine I told you about earlier, which had 8.5 million tons of 1.5% copper, 0.75 gold. And there's actually still a residual resource. It's not 43-101 compliant, but there's probably 4 to 7 million tons left there. Again, this is the second sort of cab off the rank. So this shows us the prospectivity. This is the first modern geophysics that has been done on this project in 40 years. And I think our thesis of drilling them off has borne fruit. So we're well off to having a second prospective area of mineralization. Going a little further north, we're now about 5 kilometers north of the Arctic Chief, so we're closer to Whitehorse. We've done some first pass drilling supplemented with geophysics, and our best chance grafter trend here is really starting to shape up. And you can see that we've got some continuity supported by geophysics, so we just have to continue drilling this off. To give you a sense of the size and scope of this is about 1.2 kilometers. Here's the Cowley Park footprint right adjacent to it. So Cowley Park is 40 to 50 million tons. Right now, that's the way it's shaping up. And we'll be continuing on with best chance and grafter for the rest of the year. I'll skip that one. So here's our work we've done to date. We originally planned to do 27,000 meters. We've drilled 30,000 already. We just refinanced recently, so we're going to do another 18,000 meters before the end of the year. We're working on what's called a Class 3 permit, which enhances our flexibility to drill considerably. hoping to get that towards the end of the year, and focusing on a resource at Cowley Park for late Q1, early Q2 of 2026. Having said that, if we continue to have success on the extensions and at depth, we might revisit that decision, but that's still the objective for now. And yeah, share price has been, we're finally being rewarded. I think here the last 3 or 4 months, we've almost doubled, tripled in price on account of people recognizing the potential in addition to our drill hole success. So I'm out the back there. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to come and pay me a visit. Thank you.